Welcome back, folks, to hashtag AskGSM here today for July 25th, 2016, only hours removed from WWE's Battleground pay-per-view. In my opinion, the best pay-per-view of 2016 to date of any wrestling organization that I've seen. TNA, Ring of Honor, Lucha Underground, they don't have pay-per-views, but you know what I mean. It just seems like the pay-per-views are getting better and better. I loved Extreme Rules. I loved Payback. When I went to Extreme Rules a few months ago, I said that was the best WWE pay-per-view outing of 2016 up to that point. Money in the Bank surpassed it. Battleground, in my opinion, was the best yet. From Bayley debuting to an amazing triple threat to Roman Reigns getting pinned clean by Dean Ambrose in the main event for Ambrose to retain his WWE title, to two great six-man tag team matches, an awesome highlight reel, probably the best highlight reel I've ever seen, to be quite honest with you, other than the one with Jericho and Shawn Michaels 8 years ago when Jericho went heel. Other than that, an amazing highlight reel. It was a pretty great show, top to bottom, a really, really stacked show. And of course, how could I forget, in my opinion, the match of the night, Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens in that final face-off. What an amazing match. So, Battleground last night, 2 thumbs up. My short review of it, my long written review of it is up right now on nextairwrestling.net. And don't forget, cheap plug before we get started here, check out Wrestle Rant Radio every Thursday now. It's moving to Thursday afternoons, days, night, morning, whatever, whenever the episode goes up. It is moving to Thursdays as of last Thursday, July 21st. New episode will be up this Thursday, talking Battleground, Raw, maybe NXT, depends on whether I record it before or after NXT. I'll be gone this Thursday. I will be away, so I won't be able to record it that day per usual. But I will be recording it Wednesday night, so be sure to check that out. And talking SmackDown Live as well. So Battleground, Raw, SmackDown Live reviews are confirmed for Wrestle Rant Radio. Be sure to check it out. But first, we're talking all about Battleground, SummerSlam, and everything else going on right now in the world of wrestling right here on hashtag AskGSM. So if you guys want to send in a question, be sure to tweet me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM, on the Facebook page at facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews, on the post that I leave on Sunday nights. Usually you can leave a comment or on the wall itself, or you can leave a comment down below. Be sure to include your question in next week's video. So, of course, the significance, I think it's been a while since I've come out to a theme song here on the show. I know it's been a few weeks, but of course, it was 5 years ago today, one of my favorite episodes of Raw ever, from July 25th, 2011, when CM Punk came back after a mere 8 days, mind you, but still an epic return, probably one of, if not my favorite return of all time. Came back to Cult of Personality, the first ever time that CM Punk used it in the WWE, not debuting this shirt specifically, but the other shirt that he wore at Money in the Bank 2011 as well, 8 days prior, in Chicago. That amazing shirt, that amazing show, match, my favorite match of all time. That happened. Zack Ryder won his first Raw match that night. I think Jim Ross made a return, John Morrison made a return, Rey Mysterio won the WWE title. Just so much great shit happened on that show. I think Dolph Ziggler debuted a new theme song by Downstate too, so love that show. I wish that kind of shit was on the network. It's not, unfortunately, but that is the significance of me coming out to Cult of Personality here today, just because he debuted that song 5 years ago today. So enough of that nonsense. Let's move forward here with your amazing questions. So, of course, I put the question up on Facebook right before the pay-per-view last night. I got a bunch of questions, some really, really good ones. Put 2 questions up on Twitter. Put 2 tweets up yesterday on Twitter. One in the afternoon asking for your questions, and one right after Battleground. We got swarmed with questions, and I'm not complaining. As long as they're not full paragraph form, I could try to get through all of them. Some of you guys send in paragraph long form questions. I can only do one of those a video. I'm going to say that as a rule going forward, just because it gets to be way too much to read them off and kind of go in depth. I will answer as many short-term questions as you have. If it's way too in-depth and way too convoluted, then I won't answer it. I'll pick and choose what questions I answer. But by and large, I will answer everything if it's short, sweet, and to the point, so I don't spend too much time on one question. But nevertheless, starting with the YouTube questions, first from Blue Eye Disorder, my brother Jason. Cheap plug here first. Part 1 of our Q&A talking with me asking him questions is up on his channel right now at Blue Eye Disorder. Like I said, be sure to check it out. I have yet to add it to the miscellaneous tab, my playlist on the channel, but I will do so today. So you can just go there or just check out the channel itself. Be sure to subscribe at Blue Eye Disorder. Mr. Davis, Mr. Positivity. His question was, best technical women's champion of all time. That's a good question. I mean, you said technical women's champion, and I'm not including the Divas title. We didn't have many great Divas champions anyway. But if you really think about it, some of our greatest women's champions of all time, I would say include Trish Stratus, Lita, Mickie James. You might be able to throw AJ Lee in there. I know she was a Divas champion. Charlotte now, but really, if you think about it, other than Trish and Lita, not one of them had great reigns as women's champion. for the most part. They were great wrestlers. But honestly, like, I prefer the division of today compared to what we had 10 years ago, 10 years or so ago. When we had great women's champions and people loved Lita and Trish and women like that, but they were doing fucking bras and panties matches. Like, what great wrestling matches, what great technical wrestling matches have you seen from Trish and Lita during their time as champion? Like, other than the matches that Trish and Lita had together at Unforgiven, at WrestleManias, New Year's Revolutions, and the pay-per-views like that on Raw and in the main event, and Steel Cage, other than stuff like that, I could not name you one great women's title match from that period, or really ever. Because even really before that, when we had the women's championship with Lunder Blaze, we had a couple good matches here and there, but not great real technical wrestling matches. So I don't know if I would go with this person in particular, but Charlotte, I know she's booked a bit haphazardly at times, but in her X amount of months as women's champion. I know she was Divas champion before she became the women's champion at WrestleMania. But she has had a great reign on top as the women's division's top lead heel over the past 9 or 10 months. Having some really, really good matches with Paige, with Natalya, Becky Lynch, even Brie Bella. I thought they had a couple of really good matches. Nikki Bella too. And even just recently, Sasha Banks and Bayley last night at Battleground. So I don't know if I would go with Charlotte as the greatest technical women's champion of all time, but she has really come into her own as a performer, as a wrestler. Compared to 3 years ago when she arrived in NXT and she was green as goose shit, she is really, really good now and is a great heel and has had some amazing title defenses. Some of the best women's matches I've ever seen, including the matches at WrestleMania, at the Royal Rumble with Becky Lynch, and the forthcoming match, I'm sure, with Sasha Banks should be a show stealer as well. And the second part of his question, favorite guest since you've done #SGSM for my buddy Jason. So that's a tough question. I'm going to give you a scapegoat answer. I'm going to give you a runaround answer here, just because I can't really choose. And of course, for those who have missed it, anyone who has watched #SGSM for any period of time over the past 2.5 years, I mean, even this year alone, we've had all 3 people on here, but since I started doing the show 3 years ago, we've had 3 different people on other than myself. We've had John, who made his debut on the show in the summer of 2014. He's been on more episodes than anyone, obviously. In December rather, he made his debut on #AskGSM. RJ, my brother at RJ_Marceau, he's been on a number of shows as well. And then finally, Jason, who's been on the show twice in the last couple of months. And they all bring something different to the table. I would love to pose that question to you guys. Which guest have you enjoyed the most here on #AskGSM? Jason, I could see anytime when I'm home. John, I could see anytime when I'm home. RJ will no longer be on the show. His final farewell a few months ago rather, was just that, his final farewell, because he's gone on to graduate from college and doing his own thing. He's a working man now. So I don't know how often we'll be able to have him on the show in the future, unless it comes to visit me or vice versa. But I would love to know who's your favorite guest have been, guys. Whether it's been Jason, RJ, John, all of them. And here's hoping we can get more people here on the show in the future. We're trying to get Sal on the show. He lives around the same area that John and I do, so we're hoping to get a 3-man booth going on #AskGSM at some point in the next month before we go back to school. That would be pretty epic. But moving forward, Emmanuel A., also from YouTube, his question was, I've argued about character consistency and brought up Bobby Heenan's commentary versus JBL's commentary, so I have to bring up a complaint about Corey Graves on the Draft Center. When Mojo Rawley got picked, Graves was putting him over when on NXT, Graves is always trashing him in the hype rows. Why was he praising Mojo Rawley? Graves saying anything, he's someone to look out for. Graves saying that he's someone to look out for without any backhanded insults doesn't feel right. I mean, that's really, to me, I understand what you're talking about. There's no consistency there. He trashes him on NXT, but he's happy to see him in the main roster. The only way that it would make sense to me, if he's kind of doing that as his friend, like, oh, he trashes him all the time, but it's like kind of like in a friendly manner, and at the end of the day, he's actually proud of Mojo Rawley and Zack Ryder or whatever. If that's not the case, in character anyway, he legitimately hates the hype bros, then yes, it doesn't make any sense for him to be praising Mojo Rawley on the Draft Center. But honestly, that's like purely nitpicking. That is nothing compared, as you said, to Bobby Heenan and JBL's commentary. Bobby Heenan didn't really bother me as much with his commentary when I watch back old pay-per-views. JBL is just such flippin' and flop in the same way that I mentioned last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever it might have been, with Michael Cole when he was heel a few years ago. He would, praise all the heels, bash all the baby faces. But John Cena, despite being the biggest babyface in the company, Michael Cole would write his cock to an oblivion. Just because he was the top babyface in the company, he represented, the pride of the company, he was the face that ran the place, whatever still is. It just made no sense. Like, he's the biggest John Cena supporter, but he hates every other babyface in the roster. I just thought it was so stupid. And JBL really is no different. You pointed out a few weeks ago, he hates all the babyfaces, but he loves Big Match John. And JBL is just so ineffective in that manner. If he can go back to just being a simple commentator as he was when he first came back to the company a few years ago, I would be completely content. Captain Sunshine, their question was, also from YouTube, of course. Poor Kalisto, his biggest strength is that he can do crazy high-flying shit, and his biggest weaknesses is that he has no grace on the mic. When the promotion he works for decides to resurrect a Cruiserweight division, the perfect platform for crazy high-flying shit, for their flagship show, he ends up on the other brand, and all everyone is talking about is the post-draft promo, dying a hilarious death. Is it too late for Kalisto to make a good lucha thing? So in so many words, is Kalisto damaged goods? I don't think so. I think Kalisto is very, very good. That promo, I think, turned in from something... I mean, it was a terrible promo. Probably one of the worst promos I've ever seen. But like I said on Twitter, I've said to a number of people as well, that promo was so bad that John and I had to rewind it at least 5 times. And it gave me a great laugh while watching it. It wasn't one of those one of those terrible promos where I was like, oh, man. I mean, it made me cringe. But it wasn't like, oh, man, this is terrible, this is awful, this sucks. It was so bad, it was funny, I felt like. So, obviously, that wasn't intentional. It was just a purely bad promo. But I think Kalisto's really, really good. Like you said, he's great at high-flying shit, and I just didn't really understand the move to put him on SmackDown. I like him on SmackDown, but that was before the Cruiserweight division was announced to be coming back. I liked it. I liked the move to split up him and Sin Cara, but I would have had it the other way around, really, with Sin Cara on SmackDown and then Kalisto on Raw, because Kalisto is a better fit for the Cruiserweight division than Sin Cara is. Or just have them on the same show, but just not interact. You know what I mean? Just not tag team. So that was a bit silly. But no, I think he's fine. He only debuted a year ago. He hasn't been buried. I mean, he had a pretty lackluster reign as U.S. champion just because they didn't really do anything with him. He held the belt for 4 or 5 months, but he basically did nothing with the title because they didn't allow him to do anything with the championship. He had forgettable feuds with Ryback and Del Rio and Rusev and whatever. So I don't think he's damaged goods. I think he can have a good career for himself, but the last couple of weeks have been pretty turbulent, to say the least, for the master of good lucha things, Kalisto. Mitch G, also from YouTube. What are some underrated matches from NXT's Seasons 1 through 5? Good question, but I can't really give you an answer. Because I know it wasn't too long ago, I was thinking of the best matches in NXT history. And honestly, I couldn't think of more than 3 from the original season of NXT when it was still a crappy competition show. Of course, everyone, I don't know if it's really underrated, but obviously everyone points to the first ever main event in NXT history, Chris Jericho versus Daniel Bryan, a great 5 to 8 minute match, however long it was. It's on Daniel Bryan's DVD. That match, honestly, there was one Daniel Bryan versus William Regal match. In retrospect, it really wasn't anything special because they had better matches on WWE Superstars years later. So there was that. Oh man, there really weren't many good matches in that show at all. Because 1, they were rookies, and 2, it just wasn't good. I don't know, they just did not have good matches. I remember one match from season 2, it was like Cody Rhodes versus MVP, and they gave him like fucking 20 minutes or something. That was good. They might have done a Miz and Morrison match, which was also pretty good. Also from season 2, and I think that's about it. They really didn't do many good matches from seasons 1 through 5. Season 3 was the worst, and it has nothing to do with the women. It was just purely based off the fact that they treated the show like a joke, and none of the women were ready to wrestle. There was one really good AJ Lee and Naomi match. I would probably classify that as underrated, either on the season finale or the penultimate episode. I forgot what it was. But other than that, every episode, every match on that show is pretty deplorable, in my opinion. His second question, whenever you play wrestling video games, are you more likely to create yourself, superstars not in the game, or original characters? Great question. It's been a few years since I played the WWE games religiously. Honestly, I really don't play any video games at all, not because I hate video games or anything, just because I don't really have the time and just not compelled to anymore. I don't know, but when I used to play on the regular, I haven't really done a call in since, I don't know, SmackDown vs. Raw 2011. But when I did do create a wrestler's cause, whatever, I've created a few GSMs here and there. I would create superstars or original. I would create original characters. I remember for SmackDown vs. Raw 09, I went on this huge binge of creating wrestlers that weren't in the game. But then in retrospect, I feel like I wasted my time because they weren't good. They didn't really look that good. I would go to websites and look up their statistics and kind of match them to my video game. And it just never really worked. And I spent hours doing that after school ended in the summers of 09 and 2010. And thinking back on it now, I feel like it was such a waste of time. But I would always create a GSM or two in the video games, but more often than not, I would create original characters from the wrestling promotion, the fantasy wrestling promotion, the EFED, whatever you want to call it. I did with my brother when I was younger. Nothing official, but I would create characters called like Billy Deadman and just stupid names like that. And they were all in those video games. So I was more likely to create characters like that than I would, characters that weren't in the game. I would just wait until the next installment came out. His third question here, favorite FCW matches. If you haven't seen, I highly recommend watching Dean Ambrose versus William Regal on the Shield DVD. Also, Rollins and Ambrose's series of matches for the Jack Briscoe 15 Championship are just as good as their main roster matches, in my honest opinion. I have seen the Ambrose and Regal match. I watched it several years ago. I know it was right before FCW went out of business, but before it became what it is today in the form of NXT. I think it was like one of the final episodes or one of the final matches in the history of that promotion, and that was an amazing match, like you said. So I love that match. One of my favorite Regal matches and one of my favorite Ambrose matches. It's not only on the Shield. I didn't know it was on the Shield DVD. I've never seen the Shield DVD, but I know I've seen it on YouTube, and it's definitely on YouTube if you want to check it out. I don't know if I watched a Rollins and Ambrose match from FCW, but I know they are pretty great. I don't know if I watched one in full yet. I didn't really watch much of FCW. I mean, if it was a regular program, like airing on YouTube or on the website, I probably would have watched it. But I never really went out of my way to watch matches from FCW just because it would be like years later. Like that they would post the content from, 2008, I would watch in 2011. You know what I mean? So I would love to see that kind of shit on the network on that note. I would love for them to upload stuff from OVW. I believe they have the rights. I know they're no longer in association with one another, but I'm pretty sure they have the rights if they're putting those matches on their DVD sets. So OVW matches, FCW matches, I feel like would be pretty cool. The first KFC SummerSlam card predictions. I'll talk about the WWE title match a bit later on. A lot of you asked about that in the end of the video in regards to the Battleground last night and what's next. But I feel like what's set in stone so far, obviously, Randy Orton versus Brock Lesnar has already been confirmed for the card. Other matches, I know 2 matches I feel like will happen for a fact. AJ Styles and John Cena Part 2 after Cena pinned Styles last night. Unnecessarily, but it was what it was. I figured Cena would get his win back. Not necessarily over Styles, but they even the score and they can have another match at SummerSlam because their Money in the Bank match was so great. And there's no real reason to cut the feud short just yet. So that was great. I feel like that match is going to be happening at SummerSlam. And also Charlotte versus Sasha Banks. From what I've been hearing, Bayley's main roster debut last night was a one-off. So she probably won't be back up until maybe after a match with Asuka or SummerSlam or whatever. Probably not until the fall. So, which is good, I think. We got the moment last night with her and Banks teaming up, beating Charlotte and Dana Brooke. So that was awesome. And then beyond that, we can have just Charlotte and Sasha one-on-one at SummerSlam for the championship, the match that we've been waiting for since they both arrived in the main roster a year ago. So I'm looking forward to that. So Charlotte, Banks, Lesnar, Orton, Cena, Styles are 3 matches I not know for a fact, but it seemed pretty likely to me. Lesnar versus Orton's already been confirmed. But Cena, Styles, and Charlotte, Banks are 2 matches I feel like will be confirmed or will be happening at the biggest blockbuster of the summer. His second question, if you could trade 3 superstars and put them on the opposite show they are not on, who would they be? Certainly Cesaro and Paige. I felt like those were the 2 biggest ones I felt like should have ended up on the opposite show. I put Carmella there too. I would put her from SmackDown to Raw. I think Owens is the bigger priority, though. I would put him on SmackDown too because I feel like he could really be a big heel over there. He could still be a big star on Raw. And he's still Sami Zayn and Cesaro and Jericho, all those great guys that he's had awesome chemistry with in recent weeks. But I feel like it would just be better if you had him on SmackDown so you could be a top tier level heel. But at any rate, Carmella on Raw would be decent too, just because she would be with Enzo and Cass. I understand putting her on SmackDown just because she's been separated them for a while anyway. It's not like they're just splitting up now. She was in NXT, they were in the main roster. This is nothing new, and she can continue to hone her skills as an in-ring competitor over on SmackDown. Like I said though, Cesaro and Paige I would put on SmackDown. Not for the reason, though, like, let's put Paige and Del Rio back together. Honestly, that sucks, but I don't really care. That's their relationship. That doesn't really... Is it a slap in the face? Is it a dick move to split them up and put them on separate shows? Absolutely. But do I honestly really care? Not really. Like, I love Paige, Del Rio, I don't give 2 shits about. That's something completely beyond relevancy in storyline-wise. Anyway, I would just put her on SmackDown because I feel like, although the women's title is on Raw, I feel like Paige is just a SmackDown girl. To me, she feels like a SmackDown girl, and she could really thrive on that show. And on Raw, she's underneath probably the debuting Bayley when she comes up in a few months, or next month, whatever. She's underneath Sasha, Charlotte, Dana Brooke, I know you have Summer Rae and Fox on Raw too, but I would just put her on SmackDown. Just put her on SmackDown. And Cesaro, I mean, he obviously expressed disinterest in being put on Raw just because he felt like he could really thrive on SmackDown as the wrestling show, and I felt the same way. I felt like he would have been great on SmackDown. He could still have great matches on Raw with Zayn, Owens, and Jericho and all those guys. Balor, hopefully at some point. But he's another guy that he's a SmackDown guy. He could be a part of that SmackDown 6 over on the Blue brand. So those are 3 or 4 superstars I guess I would trade. Rank all the NXT superstars that got drafted in order that will be most successful to least successful. So Balor first. Obviously, he's going to be the biggest one out of that group of guys and girls to be successful coming up from NXT just because he's the big star. And on Raw, it's not like, oh, he's going to be buried underneath all the other star power on Raw. Not necessarily. I mean, Brock Lesnar isn't really around. And also on Raw, you have Rollins, Reigns, and God. So really, you have, let's look at it this way. Reigns will be the top babyface, undoubtedly. Regardless of whether he got pinned clean last night or not, he will be the top babyface going forward. Rollins will be the top heel going forward. Other than that, you have a lot of top stars. You have a lot of great stars. You have Zayn, Jericho, like I said, Zayn, Jericho, Owens, Cesaro, all those great guys. And they can be main event at some point, but I'm thinking going forward in the immediate future, Balor can be a top fucking guy in that show. So it has nothing to do whether he's on Raw or SmackDown. He could still be a top star on Raw. So that should be great. I'm looking forward to seeing how he does on Raw. And so he's obviously going to be the most successful, in my opinion. Up next, this might be a bit surprising, but Alexa Bliss. I would put Balor, Bliss, Jax, Carmella, then Raleigh in terms of most successful to least successful. I would say Carmella might be more successful than Nia Jax, but then again, I feel like they'll try to push Nia Jax to the moon. They might not necessarily push Carmella from the get-go, so that's why I put Jax at a Carmella. Raleigh is just Raleigh. I mean, I don't mind Raleigh. I like the Hype Bros, but he's not going to be ever anything on his own. Maybe as a tag team champion at some point, way, way, way down the line. We have Enzo and Cass, The New Day, American Alpha, the Club. There is no reason for the Hype Bros to be in tag team title contention anytime soon, so it's pretty worthless to me. But at any rate, so you have Balor first, Alexa Bliss. I just feel like Bliss is going to be a very big star at some point down the line. She's on SmackDown. She can hone her skills on that show before eventually entering the Women's Championship picture at some point, down the line. So she's going to be a big star, I feel like, even more so than Nia Jax. So I would put, once again, Balor, Bliss, Jax, Carmella, Raleigh in terms of most successful NXT superstars coming up right now to least successful. Next couple questions come from Frankashire15. Was it a mistake to separate the tag team and women's divisions? Yeah, so here's the thing. I would just put all the tag teams and women on one show. Not like every tag team, every woman on Raw. I would put the tag team division on SmackDown and the women on Raw. Or vice versa. I would even put just the women's division on SmackDown. If you have the Cruiserweight division on Raw, I would put the women on SmackDown. The tag teams don't really bother me as much. Because the tag, from my opinion, I feel like they should have the tag titles and the women's titles, travel between shows. They should have them be traveling champions. To do 2 separate straps, 2 separate tag titles, 2 separate women's titles, to me, would be going back to the days when the divisions were both dead. In like 07, 08, when you had a couple tag teams on each show. Then beyond that, it was fucking dead. So I would just have one set of champions appear on both shows. As opposed to, so we're not having Becky Lynch versus Natalya every single week for the next 9 years, for the next year at the very least. So I would just have the women's champion and tag team champions appear on both shows. If they're going to do it this way, I would have just put the women, the tag team, again, the tag team's not really a big issue for me, because there's multiple things you could do with them. There's only so many things you could do with the women, and I feel like the division isn't really that deep as it is. You have a lot of great talent in there. Becky, Paige, Bayley at some point, Charlotte, Sasha Banks, all these other great women, but Natalya too, but they're just better off on one show. Not to say that they should be having their own show like on the network, which would be cool, I guess, but I feel like just put them all on like one brand, one SmackDown or one Raw. Their next question, who should Finn Balor feud with? At this point, it could really be anyone. I mean, I've said to people, I think we could even possibly see Rollins and Balor at SummerSlam. I feel like they'll probably go with Reigns and Rollins, which a couple of you pitched and asked about, which I'll talk about towards the end of the video in the latter half. That would be a great match. That makes storyline sense to me. But with Balor, you could do... I mean, with guys coming up, it's so exciting because you could do so many fresh feuds because they haven't feuded with anyone. Even the people that he feuded with in NXT, guys like Neville, and they didn't really feud with them. They had a match in NXT. But guys like Owens and people like that, you could just do it again. You could just do the whole feud all over again because it's a completely different feel to it. It's not an NXT anymore. It's on the main roster. There's a lot of people on the main, from WWE fans that don't watch NXT, have never seen Balor versus Kevin Owens before. But even if you don't do a feud that we've seen before in NXT, you could do Balor and Jericho. Jericho's not really busy right now. I mean, you could do a Jericho-Orton feud, but Orton's busy with Lesnar right now. Balor and Jericho sounds great to me. Apparently they had a match in the Japanese tour about a year ago in the Beast in the East, the day before Beast in the East. It wasn't televised. I would love to see that feud going into SummerSlam before Jericho takes off again. I don't know when he's leaving, but I would love to see those guys both on Raw, kicking the ass and going into SummerSlam. Like I said, Rollins and Balor. Another obvious direction would be to put Balor not put him in the club, but do something between him and the club, whether he's feuding with them, whether he joins them from the get-go, with Styles being on SmackDown. There's a lot of different stories you could tell with this guy, and I'm excited to see where they go with it. Next question, Justin G. So he's back after all this time. Welcome back, Justin, to #AskJSam after a long absence. He's got a couple questions here. First one being buy or sell. Heel CM Punk in 2009 or heel CM Punk in 2012? Wow, that's a great question. He did turn heel 2 days ago, or 4 years ago, 2 days ago, on July 23rd, 2012. Fun fact for you. Like I said, I'm a huge CM Punk fan, so this is hard to decide for me. I didn't like heel CM Punk in 2009 at first, just because, oh man, he's preaching about this, he won't shut up about being straight edge and whatever. But I was I'm still a mark, obviously, but I was such a babyface fan, is the term I like to use. I don't know, I just didn't really appreciate great heel, mannerisms and the art of being a great heel. And Punk had that down to a fucking T, man. He was down to a fucking T with that shit. You watch his DVD, he talks all about how much fun he was having with that character in 2009, 2010 before they fucking squandered it. But that was a great character. Heel CM Punk in 2012. He was a heel for the second half of his WWE title reign. And I don't know, I just felt like they did not need to turn him heel in 2012. Just because, as great of a heel as he was, he's definitely a better heel than babyface. But he was so hot, he was so popular. Even Punk didn't want to turn heel just because his t-shirts was selling off the shelves. Why would you turn a guy that's so hot heel? Because John Cena, and you have to have him in the title picture, and he has to come before CM Punk and whatever. So I get that. But so I guess I'll go with heel CM Punk in 2009. I enjoyed CM Punk in 2012 more. But I feel like the heel CM Punk, in 2012 when he turned heel, he was already established. By that point, after a year into his main event run, after winning the title Money in the Bank, winning the title again in Survivor Series, having a very long reign as WWE Champion, retaining the title at WrestleMania, having all these great feuds and matches and promos and all that other kind of stuff, he was already established main event guy. However, with the 2009 run, that was what really, changed people's perception of CM Punk as a main event level guy. Now, granted, after that whole run ended, and the whole straight edge shit, in 2009, 2010, he became an undercard guy. They weren't really doing much with him. He's a mid-card competitor at best on SmackDown when he moved to Raw in late 2010, early 2011. But I would really say that heel CM Punk in 2009 rejuvenated his career. He was getting really stagnant as a babyface. By that point, he had been with the company for 3 years on the main roster, in ECW, SmackDown, Raw, whatever. And he really wasn't doing much. I mean, he was winning a bunch of championships, but he wasn't all that exciting. So I would go with heel CM Punk in 2009. I would buy on that one, sell on the CM Punk heel turn in 2012. His second question, a great question by the way. His second question, with WWE doing the Cruiserweight Classic, with Brian Kendrick being involved in the tournament, do you think we will see a Paul London return to the promotion to get the two back together? No, as great of an idea as that would be, because they've been name-dropping them a lot, which surprised me. In the months and weeks leading up to New Day breaking the WWE Tag Team title record, which they've officially done, I did not think they would, but they did, which is awesome. But in the weeks leading up to it, they would mention that the longest reigning WWE Tag Team champions in company history were Paul London and Brian Kendrick, which surprised me a lot. Not so much on Kendrick, just because he's been with the company in recent years. He didn't really leave on the worst of terms, and he's been back for a couple of years now. Paul London name drop, and they're not going to just say Kendrick and his partner, you know what I mean? They have to mention both of them at that point. Paul London was a bit more surprising just because he's been very vocal against the company. He does not want to work there. He hates the WWE, one of the most vocal anti-WWE former superstars out there. So I don't think he's coming back anytime soon, if ever. So as great as an idea as that would be, I would love to see those two back in WWE. They were such a great, fun tag team, and they could probably still go. I know Kendrick sure can. I don't know about London. I'm pretty sure he still can. But it's not happening just because Paul London has been very vocal against the company in recent years. And Justin's third question here. I've been a fan of Tyler Rex, a.k.a. Gabriel Tuft. Tyler Rex. Do you think with SmackDown bringing back all these past stars, he should possibly be included for another stint in the company since his last was a flop? It's not out of the ordinary. I mean, when I saw on Pro Wrestling Sheet late last week that they reached out to Jinder Mahal. That to me proved that anything was possible. I do not give two fucks about Jinder Mahal, and I really have no real desire to see him back in the company whatsoever. I never cared about Jinder Mahal, maybe for 5 seconds when he came up. I'm like, oh, this might be the next Muhammad Hassan. He was anything but. The guy was awful. He's boring as hell in the ring, boring character. Mic skills sucked, was not a Jinder Mahal fan at all. Whether he was in 3MB, on his own, with Kali, I thought the guy was just the drizzling shits. That said, if they're contacting him about coming back, which blows my mind, anyone is free game. Rex, a lot like London, not so much, not as much so, but he's another guy who's spoken out against the company in recent years, and talking about the way that people were buried and all this other shit. And it's not, completely unprecedented for people to be anti-WWE, only to ultimately come back at some point. So it's not completely unheard of. That said, though, I would like to see him back. I don't think he will be back. I don't know how well they would use him around the second time around, but like you said, I like Tyler Rex. I wasn't a huge fan of him. I thought the Surfer gimmick was dumb, but when they turned him heel and kind of gave him another chance at a second chance at life, so to speak, he really hit it out of the park. They didn't really give him much of a push, but I felt with like dark hair, like the dreadlocks and shit like that, I thought it had potential. They didn't do anything with him. And him and Kurt Hawkins especially were great. I thought they were awesome as a tag team. With Hawkins coming back, why not bring back him too? I don't think he will be back just because he left the first time around 4 years ago because he wanted to become a father. So if that was the reason why he left, I don't think he'll be back. But it would be nice to see him back, though. I wouldn't mind it. Donche K from Facebook as well. If I mispronounce your name, I apologize. But his question was, underrated Kurt Angle match. Wow, great question. I feel like every Kurt Angle match is great. I can't remember many bad matches he's had. Jesus Christ, that's a great question. There's just been so many. The matches with Shane were really, really good. I don't know if I would call them underrated. I feel like people recognize how awesome those matches were. The matches with Shane, maybe the matches with Edge, I would say in 02, I thought when Edge really came into his own as a singles guy in like the spring of 02, those matches with Angle really helped establish him as a threat in the SmackDown roster. So I'll say those matches. I don't hear those matches get talked about a lot, and they were actually really good. Their Judgment Day match, I think where Edge won, and then because of that, Kurt Angle had to shave his head, and now it's the Kurt Angle that we know and love is the bald Kurt Angle. I would go with that. I would go with that for you. Those series of matches, specifically that match on Judgment Day, I thought it was a really, really good match. You don't really hear that match get too much praise in modern times. Zach P, his question was awesome question, by the way, Zach. Awesome question. This might be a tough one, and it certainly is. Who was the nicest wrestler you've ever met? Wow. So I've met a lot of wrestlers, and I've always thought about this. After every wrestler that I meet, I think in my head, okay, so where does this one rank amongst all the others in terms of nice wrestlers? I will say this, first and foremost, by and large, 98% of the time, every wrestler I've ever met has been super nice. Del Rio just didn't really seem like he gave a shit to be there when I met him last August in Northeast Wrestling. And then Jerry Lawler, same thing. I thought those two were kind of like, they weren't dicks to me, but they just weren't. I was just kind of like, compared to everyone else. And that same show, I met someone who I thought was amazing as well, and I'll talk about in a second. But there's just been so many. So there's so many nice wrestlers, but I would say the nicest wrestlers I've ever met. It's hard to pinpoint just one, but here's a few of them. Bob Backlund has always been great. I met him twice. Once back in 2013, which I talked about on the Random Video blog a few months ago. He was really, really nice. Both times I met him, he was super generous. AJ Styles, I don't know if he was super chill too when I talked to him. He's so fucking cool. He's such a badass, but it was just so surreal to me to be able to meet him just because he's one of my favorite wrestlers. My favorite wrestler personally right now, not all time, but in WWE currently, he certainly is. My favorite TNA wrestler of all time as well. So meeting him was surreal. Tommy Dreamer has always been amazing to me. Again, the first wrestler I ever met back in October of 08. And a lot of these guys I've talked about on the Random Video blog before in recent years. But Tommy Dreamer has always been great. Every single time I see him, I think I've met him, 4 or 5 times at this point. I want to say 4 times. I've met up with him at recent wrestling shows. One time at a Sound Tigers game here in Connecticut. The other 3 times at wrestling shows, and he's given me free shit every single time because he recognizes me. He remembers me, which is super cool. He remembers, he kind of thinks from a fan's point of view in terms of how he would feel if he's meeting one of his favorites. And I've heard him talk about it before in the Stone Cold podcast, though. He's always been cool. I haven't seen him in 5 years, though, so I'm hoping to see him one of these days at some Northeast wrestling show. House of Hardcore show, whatever, but he's always been chill. Matt Hardy is also leading that list as well. He might be the best just because I've met him at this point 5 times, I think. Definitely 5 times at least. And he's been chill every single time we talk. He literally takes 10 to 15 minutes out of his time at these shows that I meet him at, these Northeast Wrestling shows, just to talk to me. Like, he initiates the conversation, give me some inside scoops on some random shit, whether it's like it be his contract status or, his recent happenings and his family and all that other kind of stuff. We just catch up every single time I see him, and he's just so genuinely nice. Matt Hardy's great. Like I said, Samoa Joe, too. Samoa Joe was fucking chill, man. That same day that I met Del Rio, Samoa Joe was the man. Because I was like one of the few people at that show that was wearing his t-shirt, and he saw that. So he signed the shirt for free. He signed a program for me for free. We took a picture, which I paid for. And we were just talking about my favorite memories of him, seeing at TNA earlier on in the year, seeing him at TakeOver in a few more weeks after that. Because that was in early August before TakeOver at that point, where he faced Baron Corbin. So Samoa Joe was awesome. And also, I forgot to put him here on the list, but Mick Foley is also leading that list, man. I've met him at this point technically 3 times. 2 times in an official capacity. I met him at a Northeast Wrestling show 5 years ago, which I've talked about here in the video blog, or not here in the video blog, on the random video blog before. So he was great then when he signed my book and shit for free. That was a whole story for another day, which was absolutely amazing experience in and of itself. But not even including that, when I randomly ran into him on vacation last year, that just blew my mind. And he was super cool then, taking a few minutes out of his day with his family to talk to me, which was amazing. I could not have been more appreciative of that. And then talking for a few more minutes at a Northeast Wrestling show a few weeks later, and also seeing him at SummerSlam that same month was just surreal. The summer of Mick Foley for me was 2015. But yeah, Mick Foley, AJ Styles, Bob Backlund, Samoa Joe, Tommy Dreamer, Matt Hardy are probably among the nicest wrestlers I've ever met in my 8 years as a wrestling fan. Like I said, every wrestler that I've ever met has always been great, but those 6 specifically have been the nicest to me personally, in my opinion. Andre G, also from Facebook, which feud do you think will end up being better at the end of their career? Seth Rollins versus Dean Ambrose or Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens? Great question, and this is really freaking tough. You know what? I might have to go with Zayn and Owens just because of the history between the two dating back to Ring of Honor as well. I know Rollins and Ambrose also have history dating back to FCW. I love both feuds to fucking death, man, so it's really hard to say, and you're not wrong with either answer, but I'm going to have to go with Zayn and Owens just because of that real-life friendship. And obviously, Rollins and Ambrose were best friends, too, in real life, or, they were really good friends in real life during the Shield, and they probably still are to this day. Behind the scenes, obviously. But Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens have just been legitimately best friends for their entire lives. The story writes itself. The heel turn, everything about it was just so perfect. As was Rollins and Ambrose, and the matches have been great. But Zayn and Owens, from Ring of Honor to NXT to the main roster, these guys have just ripped it up everywhere they've gone. So I'm going to have to go Zayn and Owens. Although Ambrose and Rollins, their feud is kind of transcended from the dark matches at FCW to the main event of pay-per-views for world championships. It's a different story, but yeah, these guys, both feuds will go down as among the greatest of all time in recent history, but I'll say that Zayn and Owens will have the better feud at the end of the day. At E1, 3A moving forward to the Twitter questions here. Push, repackage, release Alexa Bliss, Carmella, and Nia Jax. I would push Alexa Bliss, like I said earlier. She's a freaking star. I feel like she can be a huge breakout athlete in the women's division in WWE. Repackage Carmella into what? Probably just put her with Enzo and Cass in terms of repackaging her. Or maybe separating her a bit from Enzo and Cass so she's not as similar, if she's not going to be with them, kind of establishing her own identity on her own in WWE. And release Nia Jax. I know she's big. Oh, she's The Rock's cousin. Whoop-de-doo. She's just not as good. I know Carmella isn't a great athlete either, but she's way more over than Nia Jax currently is. Probably ever will be. Not that I hate Nia Jax, but it just does not compare, in my opinion, either Carmella, the charisma that she has, and the potential she has, or Alexa Bliss, who is already there, in my opinion. She's getting there with her in-ring ability, but in terms of a character and character development and mic skills, she is freaking there. She is a star. Love Alexa Bliss. His second question, how much do you still believe those Carlito, Shelton Benjamin, etc. are returning rumors? At this point, I mean, I didn't before, during the Royal Rumble a few years ago when we heard that, and none of them came out. By that point, I'm thinking, okay, whenever we hear this in the future, I'm not going to believe it. But, in recent weeks, anyway, there is some merit to it, because if they're bringing back guys like Rhino and Kurt Hawkins for the brand split, reportedly, I don't see why they wouldn't reach out to Shelton Benjamin and MVP and Carlito and guys like that. Carlito specifically, because apparently they did reach out to him about a year ago, and he confirmed that, too. So these rumors aren't all bullshit. They might have been a few years ago, but now they're not completely all bullshit. I could certainly see any one of those guys coming back. I would love to see Benjamin back, or even MVP or Carlito, but specifically Benjamin, I feel like he was really, really wasted during his first stint with the company. That being said, I mean, I think there is some merit to those rumors in recent weeks, just because with the brand split, they need as much star power as they can get for both shows. So I would not put it past WWE to give one of those guys a call if they haven't already. His next question: does it matter whether or not Cesaro's draft promo was a work or a shoot? No, it does not matter, and thank you for pointing that out. It was a work shoot. I don't think they would give him a free mic. I mean, JoJo looked super uncomfortable, but if they really thought he was venting on the company or he said anything awful, they would have him cut off or whatever. I think it was a work shoot. That said, because they ended up running with it on the draft show last night. Not on the draft show, on the pre-show last night before the pay-per-view. He didn't cut a great promo last night, but I thought his promo after the draft was great. So that said, I'm glad they're moving in that direction, but it doesn't matter whether it was a work or a shoot. I've seen so much debate about whether, was it real, was it not real, does it matter? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. As long as they go in that direction with that promo and let him continue venting about how Raw should be the wrestling show, how he deserves better on Raw, which is absolutely freaking true, I'm completely happy with that. It doesn't matter whether it was work, shoot, whatever. Just run in that direction, and based on what we saw last night, it looks like that will be the case. So I'm very happy about that. And his last question here: does Bray Wyatt still mean anything as a heel? I wouldn't say he's completely worthless. I was happy he won last night at Battleground, albeit in a 6-man tag team match, but he still won. He still won the match, so I was happy about that. But at the same time, he just, at the end of the day, he needs to be a babyface. I think going to SmackDown was the best thing for him. I thought he was going to Raw. I saw him going to Raw. But I'm glad he's on SmackDown because he can really come out, emerge on his own as a babyface at some point without Strowman and hopefully without Rowan too. But yeah, I think he will be a babyface before long. He should be a babyface before long, but he's not completely worthless at the moment. I think the New Day feud's been pretty good. I'm glad he won last night. It was a really, really good match against the New Day, but bottom line, he needs to be a babyface at some point in the very near future. At HardyDX fan, what are your top 3 WWE matches of 2016? So when you sent in this question before the pay-per-view last night, I was going to say Charlotte, Lynch, and Banks, Cena, Styles, and then probably Owens. If you're saying WWE, not including NXT, the WrestleMania Women's Triple Threat, like I said, Cena, Styles, and then either Owens and Zayn from Payback or the 4-way from Extreme Rules. So last night that changed. So after you sent that in, I still put Cena, Styles. I thought that match was extraordinary. And then I would put the 2 matches that we saw last night, the Shield Triple Threat and then Owens and Zayn. If you want to take out the Shield Triple Threat, that's fine. I would put in the Women's Triple Threat or the Fatal 4-way from Extreme Rules. But both Owens and Zayn matches, I love the death. I thought they were both amazing. Cena Styles was fantastic too, and the Shield Triple Threat was really, really good. Especially the finish, I love too. I think that kind of put it over the top for me. But if you don't want to include that match, I would put in the Women's Triple Threat from WrestleMania just because it was probably the greatest main roster women's match of all time. I know that's not saying much, but it's still an accomplishment nevertheless. At Mark the Man 07's got a couple questions here. First one being, do you see any new titles will be created? Do you think any new titles will be created on Raw and SmackDown after the roster split? Other than the Cruiserweight Championship, no, and I don't think there should be. Other than a potential new World Championship. Other than the Cruiserweight title and the World title, I don't see any new, like a European title or a TV title. You don't need that shit. You do not need that shit. You can keep a mid-card title for one show, another mid-card title for the other, 2 World Championships, if not just one, a women's title, and a tag team title. And the Cruiserweight title, that's fine too, because they have their own division. Just have the women's and the tag team titles be defended on both shows. If you have 2 separate sets of titles, they're going to be defended between the same 4 or 5 teams, 4 or 5 women. You can't do that. It's going to look like what it looks like in TNA when they have no fucking tag teams or no women to defend against. You know what I mean? So I don't want to see that happen. I don't want to see the European title brought back. Unless Rusev turns the US title into the European title, then I have no desire to see another hardcore championship or a European title or a... I mean, I'd probably mark out for 2 seconds just to see the belt back, but in addition to the US title, we do not need a European championship because those titles were fucking undercard fodder back in the early 2000s. We do not need more titles. Just make the titles that you have mean more as it is. The IC and the US titles barely mean anything at the moment as it currently stands. Why would you want to add more championships? Because that, to me, devalues the championships you currently have. So just keep that in mind. Next question. What do you think of the Cruiserweight division being created for Raw, or is it needed? I love it. I think it's been great. I mean, like I've said time and time again, you guys for years, if I went back, and you could probably do it for me, if you went back to the first ever episode of this show, if not that show or the second or third episode, at least the first few episodes, I'm I for a fact know this, that you guys, not you guys specifically, but whoever was asking questions at that time 3 years ago, was asking about, do you think the division's coming back, or the Cruiserweights are coming back, do you think a title should be created for the Cruiserweights? And I always said maybe at some point, I think it'd be a cool idea. I've always said that. You guys have asked me that question probably as many, if not more, than the what's next for Bray Wyatt question I tend to get from time to time. Not from time to time, pretty much every single week. So, yeah, I think it's great, though. I think it's great. This question has been asked multiple times. I'm glad to see it finally come to fruition. Thanks to you guys. Maybe they saw these videos and how many times you guys asked about the Cruiserweights and they thought, hey, maybe there's something to this, so it created the division. But, no, I love it. I think there's a lot of great talent in that Cruiserweight Classic show, which I've been talking all about in the Random Video blog, WrestleRant Radio, on the website, my written reviews of the show. I think it's great, and I'll talk about which talent I want to see. That's your next question. Who should WWE sign from the Cruiserweight Championship matches so far shown in the Cruiserweight division, or for the Cruiserweight division? So shown so far, Mark asks. So we've only seen 2 episodes of the show, but I would still sign several talents. I would sign Ibushi, who's a no-brainer. If he's not signed already, the guy should be signed. He's great. Tajiri, has a little veteran experience, some notoriety. People know who he is. I would sign him. Tozawa, I think he's great too. We just saw him in the main event of last week's episode. TJ Perkins is awesome. Cedric Alexander, I'm a huge fucking fan of. That guy is a star. So I would really love to see him in WWE, even beyond the Cruiserweight division. I think he's even better than that. But for right now, he's fine in that division. So I would sign those 5 guys right off the bat. Ibushi, Tajiri, Tozawa, Perkins, and Alexander. And those are only from the matches shown so far. And that's not even including the Zack Sabre Jr.'s and the Tyson Dukes and guys like that. I feel like those matches are really going to be even just as good, if not better, in the weeks to come. His next question, who from the current WWE main roster could have been the Cruiserweight division? For an example, a heel Sin Cara. Kalisto, obviously, but he's on SmackDown, so how does that work? But Neville, obviously, will be a big part of that division on Raw. They're not doing anything with him anyway, so who the fuck cares? And I know he's better at like a mid-card level, but they already have so many mid-carders in that show. Just put him with the undercard guys. Just put him in the Cruiserweight division. It doesn't even really matter at this point. Other than that, I was looking up and down the roster last night. There's really not many Cruiserweights. A lot of the guys that could have fit in that division many years ago, the Yoshitatsus, the Tyson Kids, the frickin' Evan Bournes of the world, they're all gone, So who else do you put in that kind of show? Or, guys like that. Primo and Epico, they're not really doing much in the tag team division at the Shining Star, so why not put them as singles competitors in the Cruiserweight show? That's what I would do anyway. And a couple more questions from Mark here. Even though the Cruiserweight division is specific to Raw, can a wrestler from SmackDown wrestle in it? I don't know. WWE has yet to answer that question. Whether the tag team titles or women's titles can be defended in both shows, they have yet to clear any of this up. There are just still so many questions coming out of the draft last night, or from last week, even from last night's pay-per-view. We'll find out probably, or hopefully, tonight on Raw. Hopefully. I can't say probably. You never know this company. We didn't know anything about the draft up until, literally days before it happened. So we have to wait and see what happens tonight on Raw. But I would hope so, just to give Kalisto something to do, because hopefully the Cruiserweight title, along with the tag titles and women's titles, can be defended in both shows. That's my hope, anyway. And his final question here, who of the female NXT call-ups do you reckon will have the most success on the main roster? Like I said before, Alexa Bliss, she's gorgeous, she has a great character, she's an amazing heel, really, really good mic skills. Her in-ring skills aren't terrible, she's a good wrestler, she could be better, and she's only going to get better in time. She has been one of the MVPs, in my opinion, of the women's division since she debuted a few years ago. Next couple questions from Daniel Cabeza 59. What was the most boring wrestling match you have ever seen? That's a hard question. I don't really know. I could not tell you. I'm sure any Big Show match. God, that's a really good question. I was bored by a couple different matches. Rock and Cena at WrestleMania 29 just did not excite me at all. I don't know if it was boring. It was just not good. Taker and Lesnar at WrestleMania 30 bored me for the most part just because it wasn't a good match. Like I said, any Big Show match, any Big Show Mark Henry match, I would say. I can't name any one match specifically, but any one of those matches or involving those guys, I would probably say were boring matches. It's hard to say. It's a pretty general question. Most boring match I've ever seen. That's covering a lot of ground, but I'd probably include any one of those matches from recent memory anyway. His second question, do you think an exchanging of superstars is needed in the WWE? For example, women from SmackDown to Raw and tag teams from Raw to SmackDown. Yeah, like I said, if you put the women on Raw or on SmackDown and put the tag teams on Raw, I'm fine with that. I don't know how that's going to... I mean, they probably should have established that before they did the draft. I feel like at this point, you just stick with what you have, because it kind of makes the draft feel meaningless if you did all these trades a week later. But like I said, just the solution to all this, or a big piece of the puzzle, is having the titles defended on both shows. That will be one of the biggest solutions for this issue. Just because without it, if you don't have that and you have 2 separate titles, or even if you don't have 2 separate titles, what are the women fighting for in SmackDown? Pride? That's what RJ said to text me last week, and I died of laughter. Because it's true. What are they going to be fighting for? Fighting for the right to date Tyson Kidd or something? You know what I mean? So it doesn't really make any sense. I guess we'll have to wait and see. And his final question here. Are you excited for Big Show versus Shaquille O'Neal at WrestleMania 33 #Dream Match? Honestly, Daniel, you know me more. You know me better than anyone in terms of this. In terms of me hating Big Show, all of you guys know that I do not like Big Show. That said, though, and this will probably surprise you, I mentioned it before, so this really shouldn't surprise a lot of you if you saw that random video blog a few months ago. This is a match I've actually wanted to see. Probably the only real Big Show match left that I would want to see is Big Show versus Shaq. And it's not going to be a wrestling match. Why would it be a wrestling match? It'd probably be more along the same lines as... I know Floyd Mayweather was a boxer. He is a boxer, so he could actually have a match with Big Show. It'd be more of an angle. It'd be more of an entertainment aspect. I'd rather see this than that shit with fucking... Not Yokozuna, whatever that fat Japanese guy, the sumo wrestler. Akibono from WrestleMania 21. That awful dimple-ass crap was just... That crater in the asshole. Big Show was just terrible. Right on the ass. It was just disgusting. One of the worst things I've ever seen. That said, though, a Big Show Shaq match? I mean, I say match, but it's more of an angle. I want to see it. I wanted to see it when they teased it back in 2009. I thought they were going to do it at WrestleMania 28 in Miami. They never did. And right before Big Show hangs it up, it's a match I want to see. Help him get more media coverage for WrestleMania. It's in Miami. It's a perfect place to do the match. Big Show's from the area. Shaq played there for many years in basketball, obviously, in the NBA. So why not? To me, it makes perfect sense. So I would just do Big Show and Shaq at WrestleMania. The match probably could be a train wreck, but it's a match I'm excited to see. I know you said that sarcastically, but I'm not. It's a match I'm actually looking forward to, be quite honest with you. At Eric Cohen, his question was, do you think the world title will be brought back to Raw after the result of Battleground? It's possible. It's definitely possible. I don't know if it's confirmed, but I could definitely see that happening. I would actually love to see it. I mean, people are saying Rollins and Reigns for a world championship at SummerSlam. Hey, #book it. I would love to see that. I want to see another Rollins and Reigns match, period. But having it be over a world championship and you keep the WWE title on SmackDown, I'm completely okay with that. So, I don't know if we need another world championship. I think it'd be nice just for a lot of the guys like Owens and Zayn and Cesaro and people like that who could realistically win a secondary world championship. They need to make it equal to the WWE title, obviously. But if you have 2 separate opportunities, 2 separate world titles for one show and then one for the other, unless Ambrose travels between both brands, it could really open up a lot of doors for those aforementioned athletes. But, I think it's possible. Obviously, we'll find out more tonight, but it would be cool if we had a Rollins and Reigns rematch at SummerSlam for a world championship. At Cody Collier, 37, his question was, who would you like to see Ambrose face for the WWE title and why? I was thinking about that last night, too. It didn't really seem like there was a lot of obvious choices. Unless they do another Shield triple threat, which I don't want to see. I don't want to see Ambrose and Rollins again. We've already seen that a million times. I want to see the match down the line again, obviously, but we just saw it twice last week. Why would I want to see it again at Battleground, or rather at SummerSlam again? Unless they turn Reigns heel, and they do Reigns and Ambrose at SummerSlam, which is relatively fresh. I don't know what else you could possibly do with Ambrose, or what other obvious choices you have. I mean, I guess you could do Wyatt. We've seen that feud before. I don't really care to see it again for the championship. Wyatt as a heel really does nothing for me at this point anyway. I mean, he's still decent, like I said earlier, but another Ambrose-Wyatt feud. The feud the first time around was kind of underwhelming, so I don't really want to see it again. Beyond that, I don't really know. I'm just trying to think. AJ and Cena are kind of tied in with each other right now, so not that match, obviously. I don't really know. Balor would be cool, but he's coming in as a babyface, so I don't know whether you could do that match or not. Jericho, we've already seen that feud, but I think Jericho might be... I don't think he's at world title level at this point. Anyway, maybe... We've already seen Ambrose and Owens, too, so I'm not exactly sure. Ambrose has feuded a lot of people in the last couple of years, so I guess we'll have to wait and see. That's one of the parts I'm looking forward to about Raw tonight. Who is next in line for a WWE title opportunity? I guess we'll find out tonight live on Raw, or even on SmackDown, because, the title is property of SmackDown, so maybe that's part of the intrigue, part of the hook for tuning into SmackDown on Tuesday. At Daniel Friedman, his question was, do you think Raw and SmackDown will do trades? I don't think they will, but I think it wouldn't be bad if they did for people like Cesaro, Paige, Carmella, even like Strowman if they want to put the Wyatt family back together. I wouldn't be against it, but then why would you put them on that show to begin with? You know what I mean? I feel like trades are fine. It makes it feel more realistic, like an actual draft in real life. But I always thought trades back in the day. What was worse was having people go from one show, like, oh, I got drafted to SmackDown, then just randomly show up on Raw for no storyline reason whatsoever. They would literally jump shows for no reason whatsoever. And that pissed me off beyond belief, and that was one of the major reasons why the draft died. You can't do that. Trades, I understand. If you do Booker T and the Dudleys for Triple H, that I don't understand. That just makes the Dudley Boys and Booker T look like complete schmucks. So that said, I wouldn't be against trades for people that need them, like an Owens or a Cesaro or a Paige or even Carmella. I wouldn't be against them, but I think it's better to do without them just to make the draft just make it feel like the moves actually mattered and that the draft isn't irrelevant. What we saw last week was not irrelevant, hopefully. At Thomas_B96, how surprised were you to see Ambrose walk out still the WWE champion? I was pretty surprised. I was very happy. I was even more surprised to see him pin Roman Reigns clean with the Dirty Deeds. One Dirty Deeds was all it took to get Roman Reigns out for the count, which was very surprising, and I was very happy to see that. I predicted Rollins pinning Reigns to win the championship back. That did not happen. I was happy he didn't. I mean, I love Rollins. I wouldn't have been, pissed about it, but I think Ambrose winning was the right move for right now. So I was pretty surprised. I thought they might honestly put the belt back in Roman last night. You never know with this company. You never really know. So I was surprised, and I was very happy to see it. Next two questions come from Matt Swagzio from the Twitter machine. Was it strange for AJ Styles to take the clean fall in the six-man tag team match? Yeah, I was expecting the babyfaces to win. I had no issue with that at all. I would have rather had Enzo or Cass pick up the deciding pinfall victory. So I wasn't mad about that Cena won. It was fine. He lost the Money in the Bank, whatever. I was more surprised that he pinned Styles, especially after hitting him with a move that Kevin Owens kicked out of a year ago at that same exact pay-per-view, which I know WWE doesn't want to remember. They don't want us to remember. I remember. I always remember. That's minor gripes, but that's just sour grapes. Very, very small sour grapes. That said, I didn't have an issue with Cena winning. I was just more surprised that he pinned Styles. They'll probably build off that. I would have rather actually had them. You know what? Maybe not. I mean, I guess they can always do the club on separate shows. RJ asked about that. We'll get to that in a couple minutes. But I guess they could always do the club on separate shows. But to me, it felt like it would have made more sense if they had Gallows or Anderson get pinned. It's more predictable, I guess. But you could say, they're the weak link. AJ's going to break off on his own. He doesn't need the dead weight. They just came out with a new T-shirt for the guys. So I don't think they're going to be. Splitting up or breaking up or going. They're going to be going their separate ways, obviously. But it's going to be interesting to see how it's handled tonight on Raw, whether it's going to be an amicable split, or whether it's going to be the two, completely blowing up at each other, whether Gallows and Anderson turn on AJ or the other way around, who knows. But I was a bit surprised, wasn't pissed about it, just because it's going to lead to another AJ and Cena match at SummerSlam, which hopefully AJ wins. But Cena did win last night, wasn't really mad about that at all. What's next for Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn? If they're not doing another match, I know last night was billed as the final match in the feud for right now. And I know it's WWE kind of going back on their word that it's the final match, but I would have no complaints about another match at SummerSlam. I know that was the perfect way to end it last night, but I always felt like SummerSlam was the perfect stage to end it at, and they could always do, credit to Solid Monster, this was his idea, to do a loser leaves Raw or loser leaves Raw match, and the loser goes to SmackDown, so I'd be fine with that. Give it a little stipperoo, put a last man standing match stipulation on it, put a ladder, we already saw a ladder match between the two for weeks, for many months, WrestleMania, Money in the Bank, so that wouldn't really be necessary, but I think it's great, so hopefully we do get Owens and Zayn going, I'm happy either way, whether we get it one more time, or they go their separate ways, and we get Owens and Balor, like I said, we could see Zayn and Rusev, Zayn finally beating Rusev to win the U.S. Championship, I'd be fine with that too. I'd be completely content with that. So I'm not exactly sure what's next for both guys, but I'd be happy with that the feud continuing or the two going off and doing their separate things. Again, that's part of the intrigue tonight on Raw. What is next for Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn? Is the feud over? Is it not over? We'll see tonight on Raw. At E13A, is it the best Battleground of all time? It's like saying the sky is blue, buddy. It easily was undoubtedly the greatest Battleground of all time. 2013 was the drizzling shit. So you guys know that my mic almost went flying. You guys know my thoughts on Battleground 2013, how bad of a show that was. 2014 I thought was entertaining. 2015 I thought was even better. 2016, without a doubt. Like I said, not only the best Battleground installment of all time, in its short history, I know it's only the fourth show ever, but, and it's funny that also E13A asked me that same question a couple weeks ago about whether they should tout this as the best Battleground of all time, and you were right. I think that anyone could have seen that coming. That said, though, I think it was the best pay-per-view that WWE did all year up to this point. I think the Royal Rumble was great. Fastlane was Fastlane was kind of mediocre. WrestleMania I enjoyed. I know it wasn't a great show, but I enjoyed it. Extreme Rules, Payback, Money in the Bank were all good to great shows. But I thought last night topped them all. So I would say Battleground, not only the best installment in the last 4 years, or ever I guess, but honestly, the best pay-per-view that WWE has done up to this point. It makes me happy that I'm able to say that with every pay-per-view that passes. I said it with Extreme Rules. I said it with Money in the Bank. I said it with Battleground. Maybe SummerSlam tops it all, and I hope it does. They've had some really strong pay-per-views this year in 2016, WWE has. At Mario Bros Fan 94, what did you think about Bayley's main roster debut? And do you think she'll become one of the top women in the main roster on whichever brand she's on when she gets called up? Absolutely, and I loved it. Anyone who followed me on Twitter last night would know I had to have 5 ambulances pick me up because I was dying of myocarditis. I was only cured this morning. It should be gone in a few days. Unless something else big happens tonight on Raw, then I might have myocarditis for another week or two. But, Kurt Angle debut. Kurt Angle return. Oh, who said that? But anyway, so I loved it. I thought it was amazing. I know it was kind of an obvious choice, but even at the last minute, people were thinking Lita. People were thinking maybe Summer Rae, but no, it was Bayley. It was Bayley, and I love Sasha's smile when she came out. Even before Bayley's music hit, you knew it was Bayley just based off the smile on Sasha's face, and it was the most adorable thing I've ever seen in my life. Love those two. They're the cutest. Love Bayley. Hashtag Ultimate Crush. I thought the debut was great. It's a one-off thing for right now before she comes up. Like I said earlier, hopefully the night after WrestleMania, or rather SummerSlam. I think WrestleMania is way too far away. But yeah, hopefully the night after SummerSlam. Loved it. Great match. Great surprise. The crowd knew who she was. We had a great crowd last night. I've never known Washington, D.C. to be an awesome, lively, energetic crowd, but they were last night for whatever reason, so 2 thumbs up to them. Maybe they were still pissed over the shitty-ass Capital Punishment pay-per-view from 5 years ago, and they're finally happy they got a good show. Anyway, though, I thought this was an amazing moment, great match, and she will undoubtedly be a top star on either Raw or SmackDown. And I've been saying that for years. I distinctly remember writing an article for Bleacher Report back in January of 2014, so 2.5 years ago, people, that Bayley would get over without difficulty on the main roster. Given her gimmick and how friendly she is, how family-friendly she is, how loving and caring, and how relatable she is as a character, she will have no problem getting over on the main roster. And it seems like, if last night was any indication, that's already underway. The next question comes from at E1, or not E13, or rather, I'm mixing up the numbers here. At the 123 Egg, their question was, is it okay to declare Becky Lynch buried? Even the commentary team is muttering how pathetic she is. No, she's not buried. I can understand people saying, oh, she should have won last night, or she hasn't been used right. She'll remain over regardless. I mean, unless she's losing in a minute match every single week, she's going to be still over. She's very relatable, a lot like Bayley. She's gorgeous. She's a great wrestler, blah, blah, blah. She's not getting buried. I know Natalya won last night, and I was perfectly okay with that. It kept the feud alive. I wanted Becky to win. She will get her win at some point down the line. I have no doubt about that whatsoever. But she's not being buried, people. If she was being buried, even Sasha, when she was off TV, people thought she was getting buried. No, they were holding off until the perfect moment to bring her back, and they obviously brought her back at the right moment, right after Money in the Bank. She's not being buried. Just because she lost and she tapped out last night. Being buried would be having her ass kicked by Natalya for weeks on end. I feel like the commentary team is talking about how pathetic she is because they want to build sympathy for the Becky Lynch character, which is exactly what her character is all about. She gets turned on by half the division, by Charlotte, by Paige, by fucking Natalya, by everybody, and they remain people remain loyal to her regardless because they love Becky Lynch. She's just that good. So she's not being buried. It's only going to help her get over even more in the end. She's like the Sami Zayn of the women's division. So she's not being buried. At Breaking Bear 216, Sami Zayn for Superstar of the Year. Think about it. He's been in the best match of each pay-per-view so far that has featured him on the card. Well, let's look at that. So he was in the Royal Rumble, if you want to count that. That was the best match on the card back in January. The ladder match at WrestleMania, I thought the women's match stole the show, but that IC title ladder match was either as good or if not better in some people's opinion. At Payback, him and Owens stole the show. Extreme Rules, him, Owens, Miz, and Cesaro stole the show. I know Reigns and Styles was great, but I love the 4-way. What else? Money in the Bank. I wouldn't say the ladder match was the best match of the night, but it was still a great match. And that was obviously one of the better matches on the show, so you're right there. And Battleground last night, too. Owens and Zayn stole the show, so Yeah, I mean, you're right. I don't know if he's the superstar of the year. I mean, obviously, WWE Slammy Award shit of the year, like all that garbage. He hasn't won many matches, so by WWE's criteria, maybe not. But when I do my end of the year awards at the end of the year, and you guys vote on the website and shit, I will obviously put him down as a candidate. Like you said, he's really, I don't know if he's been the superstar of the year. I would say the MVP of the year for the main roster anyway. AJ Styles, him too. He's also been in a lot of matches along with Sammy that have been the best on each show that he's been a part of. So it's really hard to say. I think it's time with AJ in terms of being the superstar / MVP of the year, in my opinion. But again, I don't know if he's been the superstar of the year, Sami Zayn, but honestly, easily one of the top MVPs of the year, along with AJ Styles in WWE. His second question, why does 1999-2000 SmackDown not get hyped so much? These shows were hot with storylines and had great wrestling too. I don't know. I just remember the first episode of SmackDown just not being good. It was not a good show. I don't know if the rest of 99 was like that. 2000 SmackDown being great doesn't surprise me just because just WWE in general in 2000 was so freaking hot. I can't really attest to that just because I've never really seen many SmackDowns from that time period. I hopefully will at some point. They're all up on the network. But I don't know. I mean, SmackDown, I think, to me, was at its best in like 02, 03, 04. 2000 was more of a chaotic year than anything. I feel like 02 to 04 it was more organized. You had a lot great storylines, a lot of new faces at the top of the card, the SmackDown 6. 2000 was an amazing year for SmackDown, but it was the same thing as Raw, just as hot as Raw. You know what I mean? It wasn't better than Raw. In 02 to 04, SmackDown, in my opinion, was better than Raw. So that's probably why. Most underrated matches of this year. This means even underrated by you and the rest of the IWC. I feel like I can't really determine myself that matches that I underrated just because it's my own opinion. Like I loved Aries and Nakamura. I thought that was a great match. And might be underrated just because I thought Zayn and Nakamura from Dallas was better. Maybe even Balor Nakamura. Again, not as good as the other two matches he had at TakeOver, but still a really, really good match. Owens and Ambrose maybe from the Royal Rumble was an amazing match. I never hear people talk about that just because so much has happened since January, but that was a great last man standing match. The Royal Rumble too, I would probably even call underrated just because it was the best Royal Rumble in many years. And in addition to that, we've just had so many great so many great main events on pay-per-views in recent months and throughout 2016 and just great matches, period. I feel like that match kind of gets thrown under the rug or just kind of gets forgotten about or overlooked or whatever. But I would certainly say that the Royal Rumble, those two matches from the Rumble, Owens and Ambrose, and the Rumble match itself were both underrated, I would say. And his final question here, what's a match that was not over with the crowd, but would be awesome if you watched it on mute? That's a tough / good question. I know one match that I thought was really, really good, that I did not think the crowd was too hot for whatever reason. Styles and Jericho from WrestleMania. I don't know if it was the best of their series, but it was still an awesome match. I really, really enjoyed it. The crowd wasn't really all that into it. So again, maybe if you watched it on mute, it would be better, because the crowd was not all that hot for the match for whatever reason. I thought the feud was great. The match was awesome. Jericho winning was a surprise, and good for him at the time. So, yeah, no, I would probably, in recent memory, I would say Styles and Jericho from WrestleMania 32. And as we wind down here, at RJ_Marcel, my brother RJ, his question was, will Raw start a tournament or crown a new champion tonight? And thoughts on the club split on Raw and SmackDown and their future. Another two back-to-back awesome questions from Mr. Marceau. And also, by the way, congratulations to Mr. Marceau. I could not have been there, unfortunately, due to work. But he had his Marceau grad party on Saturday. I know he graduated 2 months ago. But congrats to him on a great 4 years of college and very happy success in his future as well. He's already a working man. Swig of beer, swig of soda from me, from old GSM, from Mr. Marceau. But anyway, moving forward to his questions here. First part, will Raw start a tournament to crown a new champion tonight? I hope so. Like I said before, I hope it comes down to... Actually, you know what? I wish it would just be Rollins and Reigns. I wish they would just do that. Just establish it as Rollins and Reigns, because I feel like if you do a tournament again, like with the Survivor Series tournament late last year, as good of a tourney as that was, with a lot of good matches, it was so predictable that Reigns and Ambrose would be the final two. So let's just skip ahead that shit. I love tournaments, but let's just skip ahead that predictable stuff to Rollins and Reigns at SummerSlam. I feel like they probably will do a tournament. They won't complain about it, but I feel like it'd be just a lot better if they skipped ahead all that and just got to Rollins and Reigns for the world title at SummerSlam. And speaking of the club, their feature on Raw and SmackDown, Again, we'll find out more tonight. Maybe they do split up again. I feel like we already saw that, though, with AJ breaking off from them a few months ago, only for it to be a swerve. But there's no reason why they can't remain a cohesive unit on both shows. I mean, they shouldn't appear on either show. I mean, the club shouldn't be on SmackDown and Styles on Raw. Just keep the brands as separate as possible. That's one of the only major reasons why this draft and brand split should and could work. You have to keep them as separate as possible and reunite them down the line at interpromotional pay-per-views. Like, if you did an AJ and club backstage run-in at SummerSlam and an interpromotional pay-per-view, I'm fine with that. I am very, very happy with that. So they should just keep it that way and just do the club on Raw, do Gallows and Anderson on Raw, Styles on SmackDown. But as far as their future goes, just keep them together. They already came out with a new shirt. That doesn't really mean much. I mean, they came out with the Y2AJ shirt for a week before they broke up. I know that was more of a swerve on Jericho's part. That was his idea. But I don't think that's really anything in terms of the club. I feel like they came out with that shirt after they already split up on Raw and SmackDown, so that really didn't spoil anything at all. So that said, they can still remain together as a cohesive unit, and I hope they do, because if they keep them apart and still have them be friends, and then have Gallows and Anderson do something with Balor in the meantime, and Styles is like, what the fuck? Why are you guys ditching me? You're leaving me for him. You guys left him in the first place over in Japan, and you guys joined with me, so what's the deal? And you have that build to something at WrestleMania, that to me makes perfect sense. So I'm completely content with that going forward. At Scarlet One, it's got a couple questions here. We'll finish off with their questions. First one, is it funny that King of the Ring 1994, that for an era that marked itself as the new generation, Roddy Piper and Jerry Lawler was still the main event? Yeah, it is kind of funny. It's almost like the equivalent to whether, like, if Kane main evented a pay-per-view in 2016 or Big Show, it's pretty much what it would be. That was not a good match. It was not really that good at all. Those early King of the Ring shows were not that good whatsoever, and they were better than 95. 95, which I reviewed yesterday here on the channel, was fucking terrible. One of the worst pay-per-views I probably have ever seen. And 95 was such a horrid year for wrestling overall, specifically WWE. Mostly WWE, let's face it. Pretty much only WWE, because WCW was doing pretty well at that point. That it does not surprise me that show sucked. That match sucked too between Lawler and Piper. But yeah, imagine like Kane or Big Show in a main event title match. And I know Rollins faced Kane for the world title at Hell in a Cell last year. It wasn't the main event. You had Sting in a title main event last year, but it was with a young guy. Lawler and Piper were not young guys. They were already past their prime at that point. So it's like doing a Big Show and Kane main event in 2016, and hopefully that's a match we will never have to see. God save us all. Their next question, keep or erase King of the Ring 1995 or Battleground 2013? Great question. King of the Ring 1995 undoubtedly, unquestionably was awful. Just sucked beyond belief. Battleground 2013, I have gone on the record, and obviously you listen to my Wrestle Rant video so you know this, as one of my least favorite pay-per-views of all time. That show sucked. But King of the Ring 1995 did not have Cody Rhodes and Goldust versus The Shield, which is one of my favorite matches of all time. So for that reason alone, I gotta keep Battleground 2013 and erase King of the Ring 1995. Literally nothing good came out of King of the Ring 1995 for the most part. That show was just fucking horrid. So I would erase that and keep Battleground 2013. Best and worst of Ultima Lucha 2. Best, Puma and Mysterio, I would say, was the best match out of any at Ultima Lucha 2, all three parts. Worst would probably be Black Lotus and Dragon Azteca Jr. Not an awful match, but just not, just not as good as all the other matches on the show. That show, the other two parts, for a unique opportunity tournament was pretty good. The matches were good. I just didn't really care all that much about it. The Gift of the Gods match I thought was good. A lot better than I thought it was going to be. Let's see. I thought Pentagon and Matanza was good. Kind of disappointing. A good match, but kind of disappointing. I would not have done that finish. I would have had Pentagon win, but that's just me. The tag team title match was really, really good, but Puma Mysterio I thought was the best thing on the entire three parts of Ultima Lucha 2. And the worst, in my opinion, was Black Lotus and Dragon Azteca Jr. And thank God they cut that short with Pentagon Jr. breaking both their fucking arms. That was pretty awesome. Final two questions. Top three performances of the night at Battleground and one underwhelming performance. So top three, one, Ambrose/Rollins. I thought they were great in that triple threat. Nothing against Roman, but I thought Ambrose and Rollins really killed in that match. Two, again, these are kind of cop-out answers just because I'm putting two people for one answer, but Zayn and Owens, both of them deserve amazing credit for that amazing, amazing match. And three, not a match, but Jericho and Orton. I thought their segment was awesome. I thought that was really, really freaking entertaining. I thought Orton was the best he has probably ever been. I've been saying this for a long time now, ever since he went babyface back in late 2014. And he's an awesome heel. He's probably better as a heel than he is as a babyface. That kind of goes without saying. But when he's motivated and he's happy, then there's no better Orton out there. And that is the Orton that we've been seeing for about a year and a half now. I know he was gone for about a year, for about the last 9 months. But before that, other than the tired matches with Sheamus, he was finally starting to show real personality in his promos, in his character development, in his matches, and that's kind of Orton that I'm a fan of. I love that Randy Orton that's motivated, and this Orton is freaking motivated. I know it's probably just because he's been gone for so long, and hopefully it's not short-lived, because he was on par last night. And Jericho too, you stupid idiot. That stupid idiot line is great. The no enhancement line, the no enhancement needed line was awesome too. From Orton, that was hilarious. But the whole segment I thought was just really, really funny. So I know it wasn't an in-ring performance, but still a performance nevertheless. So I would say Ambrose Rollins, Zayn Owens, and Jericho Orton for the best performances of the night. One underwhelming performance, probably Darren Young. Not an awful match, but just the finish was confusing. The crowd didn't really care about the match. So I like Darren Young, especially after, they kind of warmed up to him throughout the match, and they've been warming up to him a lot recently, ever since he won the Battle Royal a few weeks ago. But just the match wasn't really all that good, and you throw in the kind of convoluted finish, it wasn't, it was kind of an underwhelming performance in my opinion. And then the final question from @Scarlet1, we'll end off with this. Should Big E retire the Suicide Spear? So I know, obviously, you're asking about this. Daniel Cabeza59 tweeted me last night about it. I know Salamonster talks about it all the time in his podcast. Because of how dangerous it is. He's going to get hurt doing that move one of these days. So I would say yes, retire it. Yes, it looks great. It gets a great reaction. But it's just not worth it. It looks like he's going to hit his head on the fucking barricade every single time he does it. I know he's come out unscathed every time, but it's not going to be the case every time moving forward. So it's not a safe move. It does not. It looks awesome, but at the same time, it looks like it's really, really scary to take and also to do. So, I would retire that move. Big E's as good of a wrestler as he is. He doesn't really need that move. He could bust it out maybe every time and again, but even then, I would just not do it at all just because of the risks involved. So, I would retire the move. And we will end on that, guys. That is it for #AskGSM here today for July 25th, 2016. The 5-year anniversary of one of my favorite Raws of all time. And hopefully tonight's Raw will be no different. Coming off Battleground, the WWE Draft, how the landscape of WWE, Raw, SmackDown forever changed going forward. So speaking of which, I used that same line in the video I did over the weekend. Cheap plug here in a seamless transition, not really, into a video I posted here on the channel on Saturday of me running down the Battleground card in my Michael Cole-esque commentator voice. Maybe not Michael Cole is the best comparison there, but I love doing that kind of stuff. I would love to do more commentary, so if you enjoyed that video, let me know. I got a lot of positive feedback on it. So either, tweet me, put it down in the comment section below, find me on Facebook, whatever, just let me know. I will do more of those videos in the future right here on the YouTube channel, hopefully run down the SummerSlam card, which I will be in attendance for, baby, so we are only... What is it now? 27 days away from SummerSlam. No sleep till Brooklyn Part 2 tour continues now. It's already continued. It's been going since last year's SummerSlam, but I'll be at Raw's SummerSlam TakeOver. It's just going to be an amazing weekend. Me and John, hopefully some other members of the Five Horsemen. I know Mr. Mike Yoder will be there in attendance as well for SummerSlam. He said he got his tickets over the weekend. Hopefully we'll be seeing Arden Franklin there. We got some Randy Cruz action in the house. Maybe RJ makes a surprise appearance. I would love a little Mr. Marceau at SummerSlam, the biggest blockbuster of the summer, come August 21st. It's going to be an amazing weekend. We are just 1 month away. So that being said, guys, every episode going forward is must-see. Not to say that every episode prior to this point hasn't been must-see, but the road to SummerSlam is surely hitting up with some great jam-packed questions, and today's video was pure proof of that. Thanks to you guys, this show has been going weekly, has been running weekly for 3 years. Over 3 years. That we marked the 3 anniversary earlier this month on forgot what day exactly it was. Not July 1st. I think it was not July 1st. I think it was July 8th. So we will continue the show for as long as I can, for as long as I want to, and it's going to be a long time before I stop doing it because this show, I just love doing it for you guys, and I think you guys enjoy it as well. So on that note, if you want to send in questions, tweet me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRain. It ain't hard. Just use the #AskGSM. Go to Facebook, down in the description box below. Facebook.com/, don't forget that /Graham.GSM. Matthews. Leave a comment on the post I typically, more often than not, put up on Sunday nights or on the wall itself. Don't forget that. And also down below in the comments section, I'll be sure to include your comment/question in next week's video. So with all of that being said, guys, like I said, the SummerSlam tour heats up. No sleep till Brooklyn, baby. It's going to be great. I look forward to it. And Raw tonight, SmackDown tomorrow, WrestleRant Radio Thursday. Be sure to check it out. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. All support is amazingly appreciated. Just love wrestling. I love the CM Punk t-shirt. Just an all-new entry into the collection of wrestling shirts that I have. With today kind of unofficially being the CM Punk Day. I would call wrestling, July 17th CM Punk Day. That was 8 days ago. The 5-year anniversary of my favorite pay-per-view of all time. But as you can tell, I'm amped. The always amped Graham Jason Matthews. Thanks to you for watching. #AskJason here today. I'll catch you guys next week for an all-new episode on the premiere day of August, which I'm very much looking forward to. August is shaping up to be just as good as the first 6 to 7 months of 2016. So, guys, enjoy Raw tonight. Enjoy SmackDown tomorrow. Having a phenomenal week. Courtesy of the phenomenal one AJ Styles, courtesy of your own Graham G.S. Matthews, yours truly, and I'll catch you folks down the road.